Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Berea Planning Commission. We have a work and a business session this evening. We will first start with our work session, which is associated with 345 Pauline Drive, Calico Apartments, a development plan. Someone here to speak to that? Okay, state your name.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Baker, and I'm with Midwest Engineering, who's providing the civil engineering design for the proposed development that we're looking at. I'm gonna give you a chance to pull that up. Start pointing at it. So the project is located just off of exit 77. Just if you're looking at a map, just directly north of Tractor Supply, there's a 13-acre tract there. Actually, two different lots associated with an existing subdivision called the Calico Phase 2 subdivision. And so that empty area, our client is proposing to construct 192 apartments, units, ranging from 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So yeah, so it's that area there on the map. It does front what's called Pauline Drive now and Ridgewood on the west side. Our entrance is proposed off of Pauline, which is on the southeast corner of that property. And so yeah, essentially, you know, in pretty typical multifamily development. I think it's you know, has sidewalks and adequate parking to meet city regs. We do have ADA units designated so that you know, all those regulations are met, and we have a pedestrian path so that ADA folks can access all the amenities. There will be an office and a pool area that's proposed, a cluster mailbox area, and as well as a community dumpster area. So, like I said, fairly typical development in that sense. We do have some a few minor stormwater design issues to work through with your city engineer. We're working through that and fully I think understand what's being required, and we're working through those final details, but I don't believe that's going to significantly impact the design. I think as is what we'd like to go with. So that's kind of the broad strokes. If you have specific questions, I'd be glad to answer those, or if you'd like me to go into further detail in any area, I'd be glad to do that as well.
So I'm going to follow up on that just to let you know that, of course, that development plan is that larger set of plans on your, that's in front of you. You were sent that as an electronic version, and I do have the full set of construction plans if anyone needs to look at anything. This project did go to the development review team. So that's, as you all know, our technical advisory committee. So that's going to be all our utilities and city engineers. So it's been reviewed for stormwater, all those things. Our first meeting was on February the 2nd. We did get revised plans from that meeting submitted on February 21st. So as of that date, all the deficiencies have been corrected, with the exception, as Steve mentioned, is a few stormwater issues that they are working out with the engineers. So this evening they would be seeking approval contingent upon the city engineer's approval for the stormwater plan. And again, I think it's important to mention that we have reviewed these plans for ADA accessibility, parking, kind of generally speaking, all those city regulations, and it does have some 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units.
Just to piggyback on that as well, we have worked closely with Berea Utilities and Madison Southern Water District to kind of coordinate and make sure we've got the utilities the way they would want them to be. So we've tried to cover all of our bases and not surprise anybody, and try to do things the way they were wanted to be. So I think we've got everybody on board, like I said, with the exception of just a few stormwater design criteria that we need to work through.
Okay.
So, Mr. Baker, if you could, can you, in layman's terms, explain to me what the stormwater design issues are, please?
Sure. So there are several just cleanup items regarding notes and adding some details to the profile sheets. But the most time-consuming aspect is two things regarding the on-site detention basin. So this project, the city is requiring us to provide an on-site stormwater detention, and our initial design had the side slopes of that detention basin at a 2-to-1 slope. It was pointed out to us at the DRT meeting that city regs requires 3-to-1 or flatter. So we're going back to try to find ways to meet that requirement. That's one of the bigger ones. There were some other, try to put this in layman's terms, the stormwater modeling software and the calculations that are required, we used a different storm distribution method that is accepted other places, but each city has their own standards, and we needed to revise that to match what's in the regs here with Berea. So it's just a matter of crunching some numbers and making sure we have adequate storage capacity to meet your standard regulations.
So on the plat, there is actually a lot down in this southeast corner that is a lot of its own. So you should, you probably can see where that pond is located in this little corner. So that lot will be used for that on-site retention or detention, and again, just some details worked out on really particularly down to the pond.
Yeah.
Other questions from any of the commissioners? By all means, Martin.
Just out of curiosity, is the electrical supply going to be overhead or underground to these units?
It will be underground.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
Got the proper amount of parking spaces and all that? Okay. 288 bedrooms. Everybody's got a bedroom.
That's, yeah. So one thing that actually helped on the parking is, I don't know if some of you will remember, in 2018, we increased our parking allotment for multifamily for 2 or more bedroom units. So for those, they have to provide 2.5 parking spaces per unit. But for the 1 bedrooms, they could keep just the 2 per unit. So that did kind of help on that number of parking spaces. But I think they've actually provided a few
Yeah,
additional.
we've got a few in excess of the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
And they're right, proper amount of ADA and all those kinds of things. So
Yes.
all those folks can be where they need to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions or comments from any of the other commissioners? It's a lot of apartments, a lot of people. And the traffic flow will be all right?
Generally down Pauling Drive, one thing about this part of town is it was set up for commercial development. So, I'm gonna zoom this out just a little bit. Uh-oh, and then I killed my map. So you actually have bigger roads, Pauling Drive is pretty wide. You have a couple outlet options here, so you can go back toward 595 there. To the south, or you could go to the north and get out on Peggy Flats Road.
One other thing that's part of our development, and this is something Amanda's staff required of us, which I thought was a good idea, was to extend the public sidewalk along both roads as well. So the sidewalk along Pauline as well as Ridgewood will be extended, as we develop along those streets.
Okay.
So thinking of pedestrians in that sense.
All right. Anything else?
Madam Chair, I don't
I'm
want to
sorry.
be out of order, but is there an opportunity for people in the audience to ask questions?
I see no reason why not.
My question is, what is the drain on the water system? If Housing Fork has been blown this year, with that many added apartments, what will be the extra water drain on our system?
Okay. Not sure I can answer that question, but someone may be able to. Tack,
In,
tack,
in,
look at it.
in terms of stormwater,
No,
She
or
means
in terms of,
Housing Fork,
drinking water.
run through our taps.
so, I'm just not familiar with the system enough. So the reason that we have the development review team is so that those utility providers have an opportunity to review the plans and accept and approve. So they have to also sign off on these plans.
Have they considered that question?
I feel certain that they have. This development is on the Southern Madison Water District utility. And I do know that their plans are approved through a board, so it's not just one person looking at those. And again, they have the opportunity to review and approve. Well, they have the requirement to approve these plans. They don't get to build unless the utilities sign off. But thank you for your
And
question.
just to clarify that for everybody, the city of Berea Utilities does provide the sanitary sewer service for this development, but the water distribution service is actually in Madison Southern Water District's service area. So the water isn't provided by the city of Berea's utilities. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Just want to make sure everybody understands that still comes out of Hasley Fork.
Oh, yeah, it does. That's why.
Yeah, but,
I know we've improved Housing Fork, but have we improved it that much?
Absolutely, good question.
I will send your comment to our, to the agent from the water district that approves the plans.
all right. Is that it? All right, so this was our work session for Calico Apartments. Thank you very much. And I'd like to call, the work session is over, and I'd like to call to order our business session. Recognition of visitors for anything that is not on the agenda. See lots of folks out there. We're delighted to have all of you this evening. First, we have our minutes of January 24th. You've each received a copy of these. Any corrections or revisions?
Madam Chair, I make the motion, we approve the minutes as presented, please.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Do I have a
I'll
sec-
second.
Thanks, Denise. We have it's been moved and second that we approve the minutes of January 24th, 2023 as distributed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Our first order of old business is Red Coat Properties, Bryant's Crossing, letter of credit or bond expiring March 7th, 2023, in the amount of $15,210, and they request closure of this letter of credit.
Yes, Madam Chairman. I have been in contact with the developer for Bryant's Crossing. As of this year, we were, first I should state, as you all well know, we are very much actively trying to close out any bonds or letters of credit for any subdivisions 10-plus years old, those that have been kind of carried over and over, and trying to actively get those sidewalks or any incomplete improvements completed. So at Bryant's Crossing, there are, and I actually want to pull this up on a map really quickly. There are 3 vacant lots that do not have houses on them. They have now, which are down, this map is a few years old, so you'll see more than 3 vacant lots, but those have now all been either the sidewalks put on or houses built on, with the exception of 3. Those 3 lots that are remaining now have active building permits on them. The only other item left was, again, that you can't see on the map, but this lot number 1 right here did not have the ADA accessible ramp to take this back out to the street, so a curb ramp. So what I would request is that we could tie the sidewalks to the COs of those 3 lots. Again, those are active, ongoing building permits. And I have received a letter from the developer, Mr. Rodney Short, that he will construct that ADA ramp within 90 days. And upon the construction of that ramp, I would request the Planning Commission allow us to close this letter of credit, to release this letter of credit.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Okay. No questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, release the letter of credit, but tie the sidewalks to the
Certificate of occupancy.
certificate of occupancy, to make sure that the proper sidewalk construction is made.
And then it will be, the letter will be released.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Release the letter of credit.
Second, do you have a second for that motion? Thanks. Excuse me. It's been moved in second, that the request for closure of the letter of credit, 15,210, will be approved with, condition of occupancy for the 3 remaining lots and the ADA ramp within 90 days. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. The second item of business is Robert Locker and the Beaumont Development, a letter of credit expiring March 27th, 2023, in the amount of $26,609, and a request for extension.
So, in talking to Mr. Locker, they are requesting an extension in the same amount for an additional year. We actually are seeing some activity. They probably have more than half of the lots currently with building permits and under construction, but due to the increased cost of concrete and labor, we did not feel it was appropriate to either reduce or we needed to keep that amount to be able to provide sidewalks if that's a necessity. I think we're down to about 7 remaining lots in that development. So at this point, the staff would recommend that extension for 1 more year.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Okay. Having none, I will entertain a motion. Everyone's quiet tonight. Come on, guys.
I make a motion that we approve the extension of the letter of credit for the Beaumont development that expires March 27th, 2023, in the amount of $26,609, that we extend it for 1 year.
Second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Greg. Motion has been made and seconded that we extend that we approve the request for an extension of the Beaumont Development Letter of Credit in the amount of $26,609 to expire March 27th, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our next item on the old business is 145 Christmas Ridge Road. Glenn and Nita Wiles Trust, Nita Wiles trustee, is a zone change request, requesting a zone change from R1, which is single-family residential, to R3, which is a multifamily residential. Is there someone to speak to that? Yes.
Hello, my name is Katie Wiles. My mother-in-law is Nita Wiles. My father-in-law has since passed in December, since we've had the meeting last, so he's no longer with us or on this property. So the last time that we met, I was proposing a 55-plus community that we've been trying to do for quite some time. It's been tweaked a little bit since the original plan almost 20 years ago. And we have proposed duplexes, and that is why we are seeking the R3 rather than just building the 10 homes that have already been pre-approved that we wouldn't have a problem building if needed. So since then, things have happened, and we have got together a development plan, which was asked, just so that everybody could kind of get an idea of what we're wanting to do. Again, we could probably fit, well, I know we could fit more on there if we chose to. However, that's not our goal. Never has been my goal or my husband's goal. Basically, our goal is just to try to help the community for 55-plus housing, which has been on the city's comprehensive plan for years and years. I got copies of that comprehensive plan, or just pages of it, because it's quite a thick book. And I just highlighted a few things that are in the book that we meet. One of them is to encourage and support efforts to construct and maintain affordable and accessible housing for elderly, disabled, and disadvantaged persons in the area with convenient multi-module access to commercial districts, recreation, healthcare, and other public facilities and services. So, as you know, Christmas Ridge is in the middle of a Berea. There's not many open places anymore, or land rather, that's close and accessible to everything needed quickly, whether it be medications or pharmacies, whether it be hospitals, whether it be grocery stores, or anything else that, that you would need. It says to ensure the new development is compatible with the existing land use, transportation patterns, form, height, density, and orientation of existing housing neighborhoods and districts. We have done everything on this plan that has been asked, and then some. We've created, first of all, this would be a private road. So we've created a road that would be accessible to whatever was needed to get in or out, whether it be ambulance, a fire truck, a garbage truck, anything that may be needed within the city. Says encourage a mix of housing densities and types that adequately serve and the economic and lifestyle requirements of the Berea community. We plan to try and make these as affordable and basically just as affordable as we can, to try to help, because we understand that there are people that are on a fixed income, and that, you know, may draw a social security check, and they need a place to stay the same as everyone else. So we do plan on trying to make this an affordable, place to live. Support and encourage small businesses, working artists, and craftspeople, with also placing emphasis on creating a functional, attractive, and walkable environment for visitors, residents, merchants, and employees. We've already talked to several business owners within our community, that are local, that are excited about this, and that would be more than willing to come out and provide, whether it be deliveries for medications, whether it be coming out and cutting hair. I mean, we're not going to be an old folks home. However, we are going to be a retirement community that if you can't get out or don't feel like getting out, you don't necessarily have to. We plan to provide a list of all of our local businesses that could accommodate these folks. It says encourage alternative and eco-friendly farming practices. Well, it won't be a farm. I do plan to have a community garden towards the end, possibly where the cul-de-sac is. It would be great to have raised beds and something that everybody within the community or within that residence could participate in. And that's kind of our goal, is to provide something that if they want to get out and take a walk, all of the brown is going to be sidewalks or walking area. The little pavilions there are by the water retention area on the entrance there. We'll have a small dog park on the end. All of the little squares, which I don't know if you can see, but it's right above the dog park. All of the little square areas are swinging benches. So we're trying to make it as, you know, friendly as possible for all of our neighbors, you know, everybody to be neighbors and everybody to be a community. We think that that's important to have all the way around. So that's what we're trying to do. We've been the only people that have offered to build a 55-plus community within the city limits or anywhere that I even know of. I know Richmond has 3, Berea has none. We have tried and tried and tried, and although we have not been able to in the past because of our plan was, you know, we had houses and it was different, we've tried to tweak things, and we've tried to compromise, and we've tried to correct things that maybe people have issues with, or, you know, that may raise concern. So we've done everything in our power. We're locals, we're not coming from out of state, we're not buying up property, we already have it. We plan to keep it in our family for ever. I mean, we've got kids. I've got kids here that plan on doing this whether or not they like it. they're going to do it because we worked hard to make that possible. So we're trying to teach them the ropes a little bit and trying to pass this down. So we hope that that this can happen. So we also have let me see here. Okay, so I was just going to reiterate. I think that people were kind of questioning what the 55-plus community was going to be about. Basically, the 55-plus community is just going to be about the older people that may not want a big home, that may not, you know, want to take care of everything that regular homeowners would need to do. So that's why we plan to do the maintenance. These will be rented, by the way, they will not be sold. They will be rented and leased, so therefore we will maintain the roads, we will maintain the sidewalks, we will maintain the yards, the dog park area. We are willing to take all of that on to make this happen. So we do it currently with the apartments that we have. It's a headache, but we do it and it looks good, and I'm proud of it. So I fully intend, and my family fully intends, to do the same thing with this. I know in the last meeting there was some questions with the traffic flow, and we have a gentleman, Mr. Stuart Spencer, that may be able to explain and help out with that.
Okay.
Need to be sworn in.
Oh, Jerry, does he need to be sworn in? Okay.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
It's been a while since I've seen some of you guys. So a couple of weeks ago, the applicants came to me, and I'm going to speak to something I don't usually speak about. You know, I've been in this business a long time. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the development industry for over 34 years now. It's pretty much all I've ever done. I'm a licensed surveyor. I have my civil engineering degree. Started working for Charles Black back in 1989. Most of you probably know Mr. Black. So this is what I've done for a long time. I have a lot of clients walk in my office. I deal with a lot of developers. 99% of the time, the first words out of somebody's mouth when they walk in my office are, how many units can I get on this piece of property? And that's not a joke. That is usually what the first thing people want to know. How many units can I fit on this piece of property? And these applicants, Blake and Katie, came in my office and they said, we want to do something really cool. We want to make a really nice 55-plus development. They never once asked me how many units they could get on this piece of property. They said, this is what we want to do. Can you draw us a plan and show us what we can do with it? So I just want to give you that foresight. I know there were some comments about some concern about trust of were they actually going to do this the right way. I can't promise you that, but I can tell you what they said when they walked in my office, and it was different than what most people say when they walk in my office. So I'll start with that. From a development perspective, as far as zoning, you guys are considering zoning on this piece of property. Is this the proper zoning for it? I think it's worth thinking about what Christmas Ridge Road is, and even that whole area. That whole area developed before there was any zoning control in place. I think if we put a zoning class, if we truly classified its use as to what it is, it's a PUD, it's mixed use, it's a little bit of everything. We've got barns, we've got a neighborhood store, we've got apartments, we've got single family lots, we've got kind of farm lots, we've got wooded lots. I mean, there is literally just about everything that you want on Christmas Ridge Road. And there's only 37 residences there. So the idea of adding some duplexes in there, certainly, in my opinion, from a developer's opinion, is not, you can't match what's there because there's a little bit of everything there. So I think that's worth considering when you're looking at, you know, is it the right use or not? You've got a little bit of everything going on. As far as 55-plus communities, is there a need? There's no reason for me to talk about that. I think you guys already know that. There is a need for that. I can speak to the fact that I do have people that come in my office on a regular basis looking for that type of unit, looking to do that type of development, and just a lot of them haven't taken off. But there is absolutely a lot of people looking for that. What I will speak to you about is from a design perspective. There were several questions in the last meeting. I wasn't here, but I went back and I watched the meeting. I listened to the comments. So my purpose here tonight is to hopefully try to address some of those and answer those questions from a designer's perspective as to whether there are issues or not. One of the issues with road design, Amanda brought this to light. You guys know this. All the roads have to be designed to minimum standards. Whatever your standards are, we have to design it to that. That means that fire trucks will be able to access that property. It means they'll be able to turn around in the cul-de-sac. It means they'll be able to make the turn in and out of the road. The existing road, Christmas Ridge Road, is a little bit narrower than what the current standard is for a City of Berea street. However, it is actually the standard width for a Madison County subdivision street. So every new subdivision we go build in the county right now, that road would meet that standard. So, and I can promise you that fire trucks and other vehicles do pass. There's no problem with those roads, or they would change their standard. So it is a little bit narrower than most Berea City streets, but it is still a perfectly standard street. One of the other topics that came up was stormwater runoff. All these new roofs, all these new driveways, this new street is going to generate a lot more runoff. Who's going to get flooded by it? What problems is it going to create? Again, I think you guys know this, but I think it's worth reiterating. We have to meet the stormwater design requirements. Every additional drop of water that runs off of that site, we have to catch it, contain it, and release it at the same rate that it's running off right now. And the way this property lays, it'll actually be a fairly simple design on this project. It's not gonna be overly complicated, because it kind of all drains to one corner where we'll be able to catch it and release it easily. So any concerns about stormwater, I'm happy to answer questions on that, but again, per your regulations, we have to contain all that. So that will be taken care of. Probably the other single biggest thing that I heard a lot of comments on was about traffic. There's several different things you can consider in traffic here. Some of those affect this, are affected by this potential development. Others really are outside the purview of this development. I think that's an important distinction to make. You know, what goes on Highway 21 is a state issue or a state and city issue to resolve. It has nothing to do with this piece of property. We're talking about a development on Christmas Ridge Road. We did, however, because there was some discussion about there's a lot of traffic and this is gonna add so much more traffic, we actually did a little traffic count. So we went out there on a weekday, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, which is the busiest time. We do traffic counts all the time. That's when you target, because that's when the most traffic is. So we did a 1-hour traffic count on a regular weekday. Kids were in school, everything was normal. Over the course of an entire hour, we counted 16 total cars that went in and out of that road. That's about a car every 4 minutes. And if you want to find out how long that is, we can sit here and wait 4 minutes to
Let's
see how
not.
long it is between cars. That is virtually no traffic at all. So even if we doubled or tripled or even quadrupled that number, there would still be virtually no traffic on. I mean, the volume of traffic is so low that I equated it to walking to a swimming pool with an eyedropper, you know, and adding a drop to the swimming pool. That's what the traffic impact is gonna be here. It's from a traffic engineering perspective, it doesn't even hit the radar. I mean, it's just that negligible. So that's what I can tell you about the traffic. I think that covers most of the things on my list. Katie, did I miss anything? No? Okay. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Is there can you talk a little bit about, is there a federal or a state standard that describes what 55 plus housing is, or what entails 55 plus housing?
Other than what the ADA guidelines would be, I don't think there's a specific 55 plus standard.
Okay.
And I don't deal as much in the vertical construction as I do in the horizontal development, so don't quote me on that. Actually,
Well,
Amanda's probably a
and
better
maybe,
expert
I
than
mean,
me.
maybe it's just a really odd, great question coming from me, but the way we were throwing that term around, I just thought, okay, well, what is that? How is that defined? And what is that as far as, I mean, I kind of feel like I can think along the lines.
I think the
of what
biggest
that
thing
is.
is that there was a federal ruling years ago that allows you to restrict it to 55 plus, and it's not considered discrimination or anything else. You're allowed to do that. Other than that, the development standards would be strictly, you know, other building code.
And I agree. I think my research on it was it is a federally protected class that allows you to do these communities, but in terms of guidelines for what those requirements are, I think it goes back to ADA accessibility and those federal laws that relate to accessibility.
Which would be the same, really.
Other questions from the commissioners?
So I was not part of the last work session or the last time this was brought up, and, you know, the question I have is, when we look at a development like this, is it gonna be done in phases? Is it gonna be done all at once? Is it, you know, describe what that, you know, how the process of getting this development together, what it looks like from a timeline perspective for those that live on this street, please.
That I would have to defer a little bit to the clients, but more than likely for the size that it is, it would be a kind of all at once as far as the infrastructure. I would anticipate the street would go in all at once. The buildings might come up one after another rather than, you know, every building all at once, but it would be a one-phase project effectively.
Okay.
You know, there's only 8 buildings.
Other questions? Yes, Martin.
If the target clientele for this is over 50 or 55, which I'm part of that population,
You don't look a day over 40.
I think, energy costs are a big consideration. Have you got any intention of, going above and beyond in addressing energy efficiency and things like that for these? As,
Katie, if
Would you
you
come
would
up to the-
please step back up here just so we can capture it on the record. Thank you.
I am glad that you mentioned that because I forgot about that. And we are 100%. Actually, my husband's been trying to get us to get solar at our home currently, but we're not sure if we're staying long or not. So we are in that process of looking into solar energy. And we also plan to have, if wanted, charging at the residence. We own an electric car, so it's a necessity that a lot of people don't think about right now, but we are fully on track and on board with that, absolutely. Yes.
Anything else? That's why I was just about to say, anyone in the audience have comments?
There are some old ladies who don't shut up.
They'd swear you in, ma'am.
Oh, sir. The best I know of it, yes.
Would you state your name, please?
Eleanor Workman. I live at the far end of Christmas Ridge. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Did you say 16 cars per hour come out Christmas Ridge Road? Out and in? Well, if you quadrupled that, that'd be a whole lot. That's 64. Yeah. But you made light of that. I'm sorry. That would be no big deal. It is a big deal if you live there. With the buses that comes and stops there, and 7 to 8 is not the only busy time. I'm basically taking issue with what this man has said and made light of, but I was objecting to this at the first meeting. I'm not sure now that I will object. I do think it will have an impact on the people on the near end of the street, much more than for me. If it is strictly limited to 55 and over, although 55 is pretty young, there's a lot of traffic left in those 55-year-old people. They're still working. Yes, they're still working. I think that's going to be more of an impact than indicated. I'm not saying that it will be too much. If they were to build 12 units, I'd say go for it. I think 16 could be too much.
Thank you, Ms. Workman. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
So we're looking at 8 duplexes, right? So as opposed to the 8 duplexes, if this does not get passed, how many single-family homes could you build today if you choose to, if you want to break ground right now? You could do 10 single-family homes?
Currently, we are approved to build 10 homes, not multifamily, but 10 homes to where we could make them 3-bedroom, however many bedrooms we want. These duplexes are intended to have 2 bedrooms. So that will cut down on the number of people that will be living in each one too. So,
Okay, thank you. Two-bedroom. Okay, other comments from persons in the audience? Yes, please.
I do. My name is Joshua Bills, and our family has owned the lot between this property and Highway 21 since 1992. Is it okay if I share some documents with the commissioners? It's our current land use plan, and it's also the future comprehensive land use plan map. I don't know if this really resonated at the last meeting. So, I have 10 copies.
Okay.
This is, to my knowledge, the fourth time that this has had a development proposal before this Planning and Zoning Commission. So this certainly isn't something new, and it definitely has evolved over time, and it's evolved, I think, in the right direction. I really do want to commend the development plan for this. I think the goal is great. We certainly do have a real need for housing for our above 55, which I'm soon to be myself. But, you know, the need for senior citizen housing is not justification for a zone change, right? It's really has to be specific to the area involved and not the entire community. And I just wanted to point out, right, we have, if you'll see here, of course, most of the area is single family. We do have some multifamily, the apartments across the road from this development. But if you look at the future land use planning, it's all low density residential. And I think that is a real reflection of the danger of traffic in this area. Christmas Ridge Road is 24 feet wide. To develop a road today would have to be 28 feet wide of blacktop. But I'm not so concerned personally about doubling the traffic on Christmas Ridge. It certainly would change the flavor of that neighborhood, but I'm really concerned on what that means for one of the most dangerous intersections in the city, which is Christmas Ridge and Highway 21. I know of at least 3 deaths in that stretch of road between Neely Street and Christmas Ridge, and you know, it's perhaps the property's right for this development, but this location is not right in my opinion. And you know, to go to a multifamily development, you know, our regulations designate that for an arterial type street, and Christmas Ridge is not an arterial street. It's a local street. And you look at the, I also included the road development classification standards on the second page. And what we didn't see in that plan, which of course Mr. Stewart may have addressed or could potentially address, is, you know, that's a private road. What does that mean for building setbacks, the road width? Is it going to be, you know, if it was developed with single-family residential, it would be a 50-foot right-of-way road, and I just wonder if that might be part of this, of course, is to get more than 10 units on it, but to bypass what would be our normal development planning requirements that we have. So, and that's about all I got on it. So, thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bills. Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. My name is Cheryl Moore. I live at 145 Neely, and my street backs up to that area. If you guys have never experienced coming out of these places, you know, I live on Neely. It's even worse of an area than Christmas Ridge. It's a chore to get out of that street and hope that somebody's not coming over the hill and hitting you. I don't see any advantage of putting a sign up to slow people down. I slow down, but I still, when I'm making my turn, heading toward town onto my street, I have to worry that somebody's going to come over that hill. And then to leave Bratcher and turn left and then have to hurry up and stop to go into Nilly is even more fun. And I invite all of you to do and experience that. And our busy time is not just in the morning to do that. There needs to be more evaluations on that. I have 3 weeks without a car. I've had to walk on that street. You know, there's no sidewalks or anything. But, you know, you're talking about putting senior citizens in an area that's dangerous. I just, you know, and not only that, you know, I feel like we're dealing with apartments below where I live. We're dealing with the mobile home park there. And then you're talking about putting more apartments in, which I feel like devalues the property and changes the whole area, you know, especially if that keeps continuing on. You know, so I just feel like it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to put senior citizens in an area that is noted to be really dangerous. And like I said, I'm a senior citizen, and, you know, I regret it. You know, it was a mistake. So that's just all I wanted to say.
All right,
If I can
thank you,
speak
Ms.
to
Moore.
that, I lived on Neely Street for 7 years, and I lived in the very first house, so I guess I seen most of the traffic because I lived in the very first house on Neely Street for 7 solid years. So I do know that it really wasn't, I mean, my children rode their bicycles there, and it's a dead-end road. I mean, yeah, it has traffic, but we never had any issues at all. I'm not saying that when the main highway is not a dangerous place at all, because it potentially can be. But I don't think that this development is going to hinder, you know, I don't think it's going to make it any more dangerous or have any kind of an impact one way or the other. And the problem is, in the city of limits, there are not a lot of places to do this. There are not only is there not a lot of places, there's nobody willing to do it. As a realtor, I can tell you for many years now, I've been doing this for 9 years, so I'd say 8.5 years, I've been trying to get someone to do a 55 plus. We have such a huge need for it. You know, we have a skate park for the younger group, but we have nothing for these older ones. And they're really the reason we're all sitting here today, because they have preserved our community, you know, and kept the uniqueness of it. And we have to respect that, you know, and a lot of people can purchase a home, but there's a lot of people that can't. And so those people, you know, why not do something back for them? They've been good to us, and, you know, it's just sort of paying it forward. Like Richmond has 3 of them, and they stay full. I know my dad in particular lives in Richmond and needs to move to Brea because my mother is in the Terrace nursing home, and he doesn't like to drive after dark. But he's scared to be in apartments. He doesn't like the, you know, loud music and kids bouncing balls, and there's safety in numbers. They can network with each other, people that have like interests. It's just that it makes them feel much safer to know that somebody is watching for them to come to the mailbox, and if they don't, they're going to check on them. It's just a really huge need, and there's nobody, I've talked to investor after investor, and nobody will go ahead and make the move and do it. So, you know, if we have anybody willing to do this for our elderly people, we desperately need it. We really do.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes.
My name is Dwayne Litton. I live on Christmas Ridge Road.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak. We know how Ms. Hendricks feels, so we know you have one yes vote, right? You already told us that. You've just said more about it than the people she paid to come. That's great. Good statement. But I don't think that's fair to us. And making light of the traffic is not fair either. I agree with this working. You made real light of that. There's been 3 people lost their life out there. But getting back to Mr. Beal, I think that's the most important thing. And I ask you, can you pull up the comprehensive plan from 2010 and 2020?
I
Or will
can
that
from
one you have?
2020, but not from 2010.
Well, I think in the, when I looked online, the comprehensive plan showed that 2010 plan, I think, and the 2020.
So I think that's what Mr. Beals passed
Now, it may
out.
be, and I really want people to look at that because, you know, this is a great plan, and I really respect what you're trying to do, but I just don't think that it's in the right spot. That artery, getting people out of there. I mean, now, you talked about the width of sidewalks in Madison County, but do they require a sidewalk with that as well? We can't have that. We'll never have a sidewalk. You can't walk on that street. It's too narrow. Well, you know, this is safe for pedestrians, public safety, people walking, getting out of the street and not someone speeding and maybe hitting you. I think most of the people here would tell you it's dangerous out there. You don't live there. I've lived there all my life. I can tell you it's bad danger. And we've had 3 people killed. But getting back to the comprehensive plan, I think it's the most important thing because if you look, it shows that never to be what you want it to be. It's R1, I think the R3, it shows in the new 2020 to go back at some point to R1. So you've already, did everybody here vote on the comprehensive plan? I mean, did y'all approve it?
The comprehensive plan is a document that's approved by the planning commission every 5 years. So
And so
I have-
everybody here voted for it, maybe? Had a chance to look at it and say, well,
Some-
maybe we ought
some
to
of
do a
these members.
55 neighborhood. Did you come then to say, hey, maybe I'd like to change it in the comprehensive plan? That's what I'm asking. What has changed in 3 years when you went and voted for it? That's 3 years ago, right?
The plan was adopted in 2020. I have pulled up on the screen a layer on our map that shows the future land use map. The future land use map is a component of the entire comprehensive plan. And for this particular piece of property, it does show on the future land use map as being low-density residential for future growth. I think more importantly, though, the context of the application was that they weren't leaning on the comprehensive plan future land use map, but more so the text of the comprehensive plan to make the justification.
And I can appreciate that if it was in the right area. I mean, as everybody has explained here, you know, public safety, I think, is the number one thing we need to deal with. But it shows that, and then other things that we have to consider, there's tremendous amount of lots left to develop on Christmas Ridge. You said there's how many residents? And we probably could use 37 more out there, or maybe more. So how are those people going to use that road because y'all already took use of it? I mean, we're not even getting a fair use of it ourselves. The future people who live there, you're taking that away from them. In that development that is not planned in the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Leland, I guess I'm a little bit confused. Are you indicating that the persons who are currently living there would not be able to use this hideaway court? Is
Well,
that what you're responding?
it's going to take away the use somewhat.
Of what?
Well, the flow. There's going to be more traffic on that street once we develop the far end and the back, which hasn't even been touched yet. That development was never planned for that road. It's substandard. It'll never have a sidewalk. The development that is being asked to put in there now, that road is going to be overloaded with traffic. When we develop another 20 or 30 years from now, it's just not for today. But what's going to happen with all that open land that's in the back of Christmas Ridge? Now, have you driven out to the very back? There's acres and acres of property out there left to be developed. And it's all going to want to come out that road there. right now. So there's a lot to consider. The comprehensive plan shows it not to be developed for multifamily use out there. The public safety is one thing we have got to consider. It's more important, I think, than 55-year-olds having a place to live. There's more than one place to be able to use that growth, to put that growth. But it wasn't planned for there. You know, but in the last 3 years, y'all approved the comprehensive plan. Everybody had a chance to say, well, let's change this, change that. We never brought it up. We approved it. Now we're coming back to try to add more to it. And I don't understand why. There's nothing substantially changed out there. And the need for 55 has been here for a long, long time. But it keeps coming back to Christmas Ridge. After 3 deaths and more traffic is what you want to come out there. And I just, you know, the water issues, I hope that you can do something with the water issues. I think that's important that we look at, and we have your board to look at, because right now, it's in you know, in tough shape. So that water is still going to add more coming there, because you've got a plan where it goes, and we'll have to look at that if it's approved. But water is a big issue out on Christmas Ridge Road. It really is. And again, I appreciate everybody trying to listen to my rambling, but, you know, I think it's important that we look at pedestrian safety. Those 3 deaths, you know, if you had someone have to deal with an automobile incident, being hit by a car, my daughter's been hit by a car. It doesn't take much to get hurt really bad. At 67, I get hit by a car, it's going to hurt really bad. I can't even walk on our street now because of the traffic out there. So I want you to consider that, please. But the comprehensive plan would go back to that again and again. And I think that's something that y'all approved. And I think you need to stay with what you approved. But Ms. Henry, we know your vote.
In
Thank
terms
you.
of safety, thank you for addressing me. In terms of safety, I would think, I'm not arguing. Okay, well, this is my job to look out for the overall best interest of everybody in the community, not just one group of people. So, in terms of safety, you know, if we want to consider safety to be a factor, you also have to think, what about the people that go out to their mailbox and fall and nobody is there to check on them? You know, if you have all those people together that are all watching out for each other, you know, there's safety in that. What if one of them has a heart attack and can't call for help, but they have their friends there that are checking on them regularly? So, you know, yes, all the lives matter, but I think that's something to be taken into consideration too. And I totally agree with him that we have needed it for a very long time. But where else are you going to put it? We can't make somebody provide the land. We can't make somebody take out a loan for that amount of money and do such a development. So, you know, our options are limited. If we have someone willing to do it, you know, here's our opportunity to fulfill our comprehensive plan. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, yes, please.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do. My name's Bradley Montgomery. I live at 49 Christmas Ridge Road, right next to the exit of Christmas Ridge Road, second house down. Lived there for about 4 or 3 years. The traffic on that street is already loaded. And if you sit out there on my front porch, you'll find that it is. I'm 78 years old, and I've heard old and senior and senile till I'm sick of it. I'm still good. I still work. I still go. I still fish. I'm not ready for the rest home yet. Yes, stuff like this is needed. It is. I agree. but it's needed in the right place. Don't overload one street just to get to what you want. This street will not hold that many more cars. What would it be, 32 cars if everybody had a car, each couple had a car, or each one out of the couple had a car? That'd be 32 cars. What about the kids that's come to visit? What about the grandkids that come to visit? What about the visitors that would come to visit? You gotta take all that into consideration too. And as Mr. Witt says, that street is dangerous. I know we walk it a lot, me and my wife. It is dangerous, and you have to be careful, especially down there around the S-curve where this goes in, or the entrance to this is. You've got to be careful. I hope you keep this in consideration, that this is overloading Christmas Ridge Road. People that's lived there, a lot of people live there longer than I have, but keep it in consideration, the safety end of this street, if you would, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Others? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, yes. You'll yield? Okay.
We own 5.9 acres out near the end of this. So I'm going to go to my lawyer and put this in a trust so it can't be developed when I pass on, I think. So thank you. But I'm going to go on record here against nobody on the ridge might like me anymore. We do need this kind of housing. There is space there. But if you put that many units with that many cars and still allow on-street parking, you're going to have a bad time. There is a car that parks on that curve all hours of the day. 24 hours a day, there is a car parked on that curve across the street. I can see 10 units, as I said before. But there is a traffic issue because part of it is on-street parking. You're going to have to deal with that, and that's not going to make those homeowners happy. They don't have any place else to put their cars. Pam?
I do. Pamela Slukowski. I've been on Christmas Ridge 27 years. And every time I turn from coming into town onto the street, I pray, please don't let anyone run into me. When I go visit my friend on Badger Lane and I make the turn from my house to her house, please don't let anyone run into me. And when I turn in to go to town, please don't let anyone run into me. And now we have a bypass. And when cars are not going to go use the bypass and then go to McKee or Big Hill, some of those cars are going to come our way. So what's going to happen, that's another part of the traffic issue, is there's going to be more traffic coming along that same stretch where 3 people have died. So adding traffic from both directions is going to make more of a safety issue. So I worked with my whole career with adults with disabilities, and I'm absolutely for those people getting a good place to live, and I admire what you're doing and the thoughtfulness of it, but I agree, Christmas Ridge is not a good place for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments? I see someone's behind you. There's a pink hat, is that what I'm seeing back? Okay. Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth,
My name's Daniel Richardson. I live at 144 Christmas Ridge Road. The last time this was brought up, it got shot down by, I'm fairly certain, by you, Ms. Olinger, by quoting the statutes that it basically saying that this was a subdivision and thus had to meet the requirements for a subdivision, which meant the wider road, smaller lot, or different size lots, I guess, and I was just wondering to know what changed between then and now that it was no longer meeting the requirements of a subdivision and could now go in as a substandard street and
So I can,
Ms.
I can
Amanda,
try to
please.
speak to that. So the hearing this evening is actually a continuation of a hearing from August. There was actually no vote at that hearing. So whether it was turned down or denied was
I'm
not the
talking, I'm talking
case.
several years ago, the last time this was, they attempted to develop this land.
Okay, so there were previous applications, one in 2000. The application again was a little different at the time. It was from a R1 to R3 with the justification that there were major economic or social changes in the area. So with zone changes, there has to be a finding of fact, and we have to prove one of 3 criteria as required by KRS statute. In 2001, it was brought back. They tried the same thing, so R1 to R3 with the justification that it was in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And you're correct, both of those were denied. My understanding, though, from the research that I've done, is those were planned for multi-family dwellings and not for duplexes. So the distinction in, really those were for apartments. The distinction this time is it's very specific to 8 duplex buildings.
But that's still multiple buildings on a single lot.
It is multiple buildings on a single lot, you're correct, which is why the zoning would have to be R3 multifamily. But developers do have the option to keep everything on one lot and have all that infrastructure be private. Now, that's, again, not to say that you don't have to meet those safety requirements. So, you know, again, we've got to provide a way for ambulances to get to people. We've got to provide a way. So we have to have safe streets. We have to have certain infrastructure. All of those plans would be considered if this zone change passes and they are able to move forward. We would look at those city regulation requirements, but they don't have to subdivide it and make it several lots. It can be multiple units on one lot.
And Mr. Richardson, one of the concerns that we did have, talking about just the one in August, had to do with the fact that we really could not see conceptually what that plan was going to be. So that was one of the reasons we'd asked them to come back with a conceptual model.
Yes, ma'am,
for
I
that.
understand.
So it had nothing to do with subdivision.
I'm talking about the original
Oh,
attempt at,
I can't go that far.
like I said, I remember. Yeah.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Like I said,
Thank you,
I
Mr.
remember that it was somebody on the council. It might not have been you. I just, for some reason, remember it being you. Basically told them that what you're asking for is a subdivision, must meet the requirements of a subdivision. And that's, like I said, it might not have been you, it might have been some other member, I don't know. But I do remember them saying that quite clearly, that what you're wanting is a subdivision and therefore must meet the requirements for a subdivision. So, if I'm mistaken, then I don't know.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Can I speak in response to that? Just a
Yes.
little bit of clarification. So one of the benefits to this type of development. This is basically a singular site development plan. There's no infrastructure inside of this that the city of Berea is gonna take over. It's gonna be 100% private. If this was to be divided and these buildings were to be sold in individual ownership, this would have to be a city street. It would have to be dedicated to the city. The water line running up that street would have to be dedicated to the water company. All this would have to be public infrastructure. Then it would have to be and meet all the subdivision requirements. In doing so, every single one of these units, whether, as it is right now, it would be single houses. 10 or 12 houses would all be in individual ownership. It'd all be different people that own them. They could do whatever they want. They wouldn't have covenants and restrictions or whatever. They could do whatever they want with each lot. The benefit to this development is it's one lot. It cannot be subdivided once it's developed because this is not a city street. It's gonna always remain in one ownership. That means it's gonna be maintained by one company. That means if you have codes issues, if you have somebody that's not taking care of the property, the codes department has one person, one entity to go to and say, hey, clean up your mess, fix this problem. You have one entity that's gonna be maintaining all of this property. I really think, I understand all the arguments against, but I think it's important that everybody understand that if this isn't approved as a singular development, that they very well may come in there and build a city street and sell 10 or 12 individual lots to 10 or 12 individual homeowners, and then it won't, then you have all individual ownership. So.
Okay, all right. Hold on. Whoa, hold on. Let's not get back and forth here. You had a comment, Mr. Bills, I think.
I don't know if I need to swear. All
No, you
right.
still-
So I did participate and sit in that 2001, and it was for single family. And the reason it was, as in my recollection, denied was because it did not meet what normally would be, minimum standards with minimums required setbacks and things like that. So I understand the benefit of a single site development, but it's like, well, where do you draw the line? So does this mean that any lot of sizable development could be maintained under single ownership and bypass our building lot minimum standards? It's a question for you all to consider. We don't have the appropriate setbacks that we would have even with a R2 duplex zone, right? We don't have the 25-foot setback for building with the road frontage. So, it's a question. Do you want to set a precedent for opportunities to develop properties that don't meet our minimum standards because they're under single ownership? So, thank you.
Do you have a comment, Mark? Okay. Any other comments? Yes, there's a lady in the pink, there, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Melissa Bagley, and I live on South Cumberland Street.
That's it.
And, oh, I'm sorry.
Swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, and my name was the truth, so. But I'm just here because I think this is a wonderful humanitarian endeavor, and I think it enhances the quality of Berea that we support our senior citizens. And I myself, I am over 65 years of age, and I live in a nice neighborhood where we are supportive of each other, that we can contact each other and we can rely upon each other. And this, a senior citizen 55-plus community is something that I might need in the future, but at this point I do not. But I just think it's wonderful. I think it would be great tourist information to add to the quality of living in Berea. We have the arts and crafts and traffic. Traffic has become horrific in Berea in the last 10 years. In my neighborhood, it's basically, there's not a lot of in and out, but the way that people drive, they're supposed to go 25 miles per hour. They're driving 55 miles per hour, and I worry about the people who are actually out taking evening walks or the cats and dogs that might be running around. But I just think it's wonderful that we do this. And, we can work in conjunction with the Senior Citizens Center, the St. Joseph Hospital. And as far as, traffic accident, when I worked at UK Healthcare, one of the areas that I used to round on patients and take concerns and complaints was the trauma center. So I understand, what it's like for people to, have their loved one airlifted to the hospital or have to bury them. It's very traumatic. But we have to sometimes think from the heart. And this is something that to me, yeah, it's going to add a few extra cars. But, you got to think, too, the 55-plus population, most of those individuals are pretty much more calm than if you're building other types of, apartment complexes where you have younger people, you have probably louder music, you probably have more activities going on. So this is sort of a sedate population of people, and I just think it's very humanitarian that this something like this is enacted in Berea. And yes, I've heard probably for about 20 years that there was going to be a 55-plus facility built in Berea. I've heard that for years and years. So I just think it's time that it's enacted and that it's a great project, and that's just my personal opinion. And as we all know, we all have different opinions. So my only comment is it's a humanitarian endeavor.
Thank you, Ms. Begley. Anyone else? Yeah, hold on. I see someone. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Doucette. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. I'm sitting here and I'm listening. A lot of it is a lot confusing to me. But I do know when I came to Berea, I'm from Buffalo, New York. And company came to Buffalo and bought up Stemco motor wheel, and I needed a place to stay. It's a big change, a big culture change for me, from Buffalo, New York to Berea. But when I got here, first I needed a place to stay. And I called Miss Katie up. And she said, well, sure, you can come down and check out the apartment. And I was just floored for that, because when I went online and saw the apartments, it just blew me away from where I come from. And when I got here, I met the most nicest people that I've ever met in my life. My neighbor downstairs invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. She said, I know you're from Buffalo and you don't have your family here, and you can come and have dinner with us. And everything was just different, and it was just mind-blowing. And the facility where I live is always clean. I never had a problem with my landlord. And I just want to say on my behalf that, hey, there's no place I'd rather be than right here, right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rosette. Appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Our traffic problem is the people on 21. It's not the people coming out.
Right.
And when the city or somebody put up those,
Ma'am, could you please
Sister.
step to the microphone?
Actually,
when those traffic
I'm
things were
sorry.
put up, I'm sorry. I didn't see you and I didn't hear you.
but she has been waiting for the couple.
Go ahead.
So
I
go
will.
ahead.
I will.
Please.
Please do.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. My name's Wanda.
Wanda, what's your last name, Wanda?
Oh, I'm sorry, Quibido. I guess I'll back up a little bit. I've got some friends. I'm from northern Kentucky, so I'm a northern girl learning how to be southern, a little rough. But anyway, a friend of mine, her mom is in her 80s, and she actually lived here in Berea a long time ago, and she's the one that told me, if you want to retire, go to Berea. Okay, so I'm renting an apartment. I have got bad news from the doctors that I have a vertebrae that's cracked, and I've got one that is dislocated, is protruding out, and I'm in one of her, well, let's just say I climb 15 steps every day. When I found out this was happening, I was very excited. I need something like this. I don't want to move out of Berea, but if it comes down to where I'm gonna have to stay in a place, which is very hard to find, a one floor, very hard. And Katie will tell you, I've been waiting for about 7 years. She had one available, and there was somebody in a wheelchair, which I'm not yet, and I told her, I said, let them have it, because that's more important. So my thing is this, I'm looking at her as laying in bed at night and thinking, what can I do for the people in my apartment to make things better? Okay, and I think her stepping up like this, I give her 10 stars for that. I really do. I think this is something that should be considered. Also, if I was to move into that place, it's my preference on if I want to get in a car and I want to go and move my stuff into that place. Everybody's got the choice to make that themselves, whether the roads are good or bad. If I knew that I could live in comfort, would be more important to me. But I also know I go on roads out here all the time that are big and people are speeding up and down, so it doesn't matter to me. It matters who's behind the wheel, okay, not the road. It's not the road that causes people to wreck, it's the person behind the wheel. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Workman?
Yeah, those deaths, we have not had a lot of deaths in the previous years. Those are all rather recent. Someone put up those traffic things saying, you know, they're 2 weeks, slow down. All right, they were removed. They don't do us any good. They don't remind us anymore. We need some kind of thing out there to control the traffic on 21, which would help the traffic coming out of Christmas Ridge, which would help the whole situation.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I'm going to say tonight.
So we know Highway 21 is a state road, and maybe we can get the state to come down and do something about it, huh? Mayor? Working on it, all right.
Madam Chairman, I have 3 comments that were submitted for people that could not attend to the meeting.
Okay,
So, do you want me to do that now?
please.
Thank you. So the first letter is from Pat Sappenfield at 195 Morningview Road. This is to support the zoning request made by Blake and Katie Wiles to build a 55-plus community in Berea. At this time, I'm not aware of any other such facility for 55-plus seniors in Berea. As a senior citizen, I'm interested in this kind of community being made available to others and me. Having such a community for 55-plus is appreciated, especially as the lifestyles are very different when they're all ages living in the same complex. One more obvious difference is usually less noise and activity at late night and morning times. Berea presently has one of 2 pilot programs in Kentucky to help seniors remain in their homes, and I belong to it. So I know that Berea is interested in providing assistance to us seniors as we age. In my mind, your approval of the Wiles request is another way to assist us to remain living in our homes. Thank you for your consideration of this request and for approving the zone change requested by Blake and Katie Wiles. The second is from Finley Poe. My husband and I have lived in Blakewood Apartments for over 15 years. Katie and Blake have been wonderful, Katie especially. Anytime we need something from them, they are quick to reply. They fix anything that needs fixed as soon as possible. They spray for pests every summer to ensure we won't ever have any. They have only raised our rent once in 15 years, and they were so apologetic, even though they didn't need to be. It's just business, and rent is still very fair. If I ever have an issue with a neighbor, which has been rare, she addresses it immediately and is always polite. They make sure the complex is safe. They put up and maintain security lights on every building, cameras for every angle, and the entire backside is fenced in. I know they are building or trying to some one-level duplexes that would be perfect for my disabled mother, an elderly grandmother, and others in similar situations. And then lastly, from Edna Witt, I've lived in Blakewood Apartments for 14 years. Absolutely love my home. Blake and Katie Wiles have been the best landlords I've ever had. Katie works very hard to keep it that way. A few examples of her dedication are, one time I needed a new toilet. She carried the new one up, fixed everything, carried the old one down. When it snows, they always shovel the porches and sidewalks to make sure the residents are safe. She also will not put up with residents who cause problems. They will get a warning. If they continue to cause problems, she will put them out. The lawn is always nice. The trees and bushes are kept trimmed. The entire complex, with exception of the entrance, has a fence around it. My elderly mother and I would greatly benefit from a one-level duplex, and I know others would as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Martin, I think you had a comment.
I did, and Amanda, I wanted to get some advice from you. For us to consider a zone change, we have to find justification for that, and we all know that process. It seems like in this case, the justification is the need for housing to support the aging community and diversified housing options. So that being said, I mean, how is it that it can be just 55 and older? I mean, we can't put that stipulation on the zone change that I'm aware of. And I don't know that a landowner can, because of the Fair Housing Act, can only rent to 55 and older. So how do we address that? Because we could approve this zone change based on that, but I don't know where there's any teeth to any of this.
Do you have something to say?
No, go ahead. I'll comment after.
Okay. So as we know, a zone change, the justification for a zone change has to come in one of three findings of fact. Those findings of fact are, one, that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So in this case, again, the application was made in that manner to say that there are specific there are specific statements in the comprehensive plan that address aging community, housing for aging communities, specifically 55-plus communities. So I think that is the application that's in front of us. The other two justifications, again, I don't think anyone's spoken to, are that it was inappropriately zoned, or that there's been a social or economic change. So I think we're now down to one specific finding that this body must make, and obviously was their burden to prove. In terms of, can we limit them to a certain development? I did give you guys a copy of the KRS statute for, so this comes, well, I've got to find mine, sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay. So from KRS 100.203, this is the statute that allows the Planning Commission to request this conceptual plan or this development plan. I hate to use the term development plan because we use that in the planning world, and it's very much specific to meeting all these requirements, so I like to use the word conceptual. But that KRS statute says the text may provide that the Planning Commission, as a condition to granting any zone change, may require the submission of a development plan. So as we know, that's why we're here tonight, we did that. Which shall be limited to the provisions of the definition contained in KRS 100.111, which I gave you below this. These are the things we could ask for. Where agreed upon, and I think this is the most important thing in this scenario, so where agreed upon, this development plan shall be followed. As a further condition to the granting of the zone change, the Planning Commission may require that substantial construction be initiated within a certain period of time of not less than 1 year, provided that such zoning change shall not revert to its original designation unless there has been a public hearing. So what KRS statute allows us to do was, one, get this conceptual plan, and then two, agree to this conceptual plan. And to me, that means when we look at the definition, it's very specific to density of it, general overall layout. You know, I look at this on the outside and I say R1 to R3. R3 allows multifamily. The reality is, multifamily apartment buildings are permitted in a R3. So what this language does is this language specifies that if this zone change is approved and if this is made part of the motion and adopted that way or accepted that way, then the developer would not be able to do multifamily dwelling. They would be really only able to build, generally speaking, what was presented on this conceptual plan.
Okay. And Martin, it is my understanding that yes, people, developers, whether it's large complexes, except they are allowed to have 55 and older, 55 and over people in those places. The law allows a person to have a complex or houses for which they say only 55 and older can live there. Now, you know, that says that there's not they're not discriminating against others. They are making plans for persons of us that are getting 55 and older, and it's not discrimination. They are everywhere except here.
No offense, Madam Chair, but I'll ask, counsel, is that
counsel?
correct?
Yeah.
It's all right.
I think that although the goal is for 55, I don't think that you can limit it to it. I mean, they can say that, and they would not be discriminating, but they could rent it to whoever they wanted to.
It has to be, I think, 85%. There's a percentage,
Okay.
there has to be.
I thought there was something that
75%.
required you to have
Has to be
55 and over.
That's how they do it.
Mm.
That's fair housing laws.
For housing law.
I mean, we can.
You agree with what?
I can't say
No,
that
it's
you
not
can,
him.
that you can hold them to a limit of 55.
It really is. That's how they do it everywhere. I mean, it's housing laws. It really is. We can look it up. It really is.
They're allowed to do that and not be subject to discrimination, but there's no requirement to hold them to that.
So I think the discussion is not whether they choose to, it's whether they choose to be a 55-plus community. And I think then if they choose to, yes, then those fair housing laws apply.
Yes.
I think what corporate counsel is saying, if I'm right, is we can hold them to a conceptual plan by KRS statute, but we could not say as a body that this must in fact be a 55-plus community. Is that correct?
Would be
Is
my
that your, okay.
opinion, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, in the various communities, whether it's Lexington, Atlanta, or Richmond, they do have communities that are 55 and older. No one is allowed to, well, the people who own it will not rent to persons who are less than 55. That is a requirement for it to be able to live in that spot. Now, how they get away with it, how they, you know, what the laws, et cetera, are, I can't tell you that. He's the lawyer. But understand that indeed, if we approve this, and we would approve it in the context of our comprehensive plan. The text of our comprehensive plan states that we want housing to support the aging population, okay? And for aging population is a dilemma, or? No. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I'm
you know,
sorry.
I look at it and, you know, I've had people ask me about, you know, planning and zoning, and what I see is what planning and zoning does. And as I told, you know, the Madam Chair, I said, you know, we call balls and strikes, okay? And when I look at this one, you know, it's, you know, the language, you know, I get, as far as, you know, housing for aging community, and the list goes on, right? But then I look at the map itself, which, you know, shows, you know, low density. So, you know, I'm kind of torn, and, you know, in looking at this, you know, we can obviously say, hey, it's R1, go build 10 houses. You can start tomorrow, right? Or we can, you know, we can try to look at this conceptual plan for those of us, and I'm one as well. I'm 50. I'll be 57 in October. So, you know, this type of community, as we age, you know, may be something that I would be in favor of. So I'm torn kind of both ways in this, in both language and map. And I appreciate those that have been here that have added comments, whether it's the safety of Highway 21, whether it's the traffic studies that's been done, albeit an hour. And I think that you know, maybe more can be done, but that it is what it is. But you know, we'll see where this goes.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Any other comment? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add one more thing that I obviously forgot. So it appears that people assume that I do not know how Highway 21 is, and I do. And I honestly, I know how dangerous it can be. I do. And I'm fully aware of the 2 children, and, you know, that was struck by a car on up from Christmas Ridge and on down by Neely Street. And so I reached out to the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, because obviously I do not want to put something in that obviously is going to have the potential to, you know, cause any more accidents or injure someone. So I reached out actually at the beginning of February and reached out to Robert Baker. He is District 7 permit engineer through the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. And I just asked him to give me a letter or put his input on what he thinks needs to be addressed there or happen, if anything. And this is what it says. Subject, Madison County Development on Christmas Ridge Road, improvements to Kentucky 21. To whom it may concern, this letter is in response to a development which consists of, at that time, 12 duplexes, which we have now lessened that, on Christmas Ridge Road in Berea, Kentucky. Christmas Ridge Road is owned and maintained by the county and connects to Kentucky 21. This development will add traffic to the roadway of Kentucky 21. However, the amount of traffic generated is not anticipated to cause any issues to the current roadway infrastructure. Improvements to Kentucky 21 will not be required from KYTC due to the construction of these 12 duplexes at this time. If you desire any further explanation, please contact Robert A. Baker, District 7 Permit Engineer. Sincerely, Robert A. Baker.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question, please?
Yes, sir.
And I guess this goes to the council, and from what I understand, there is no way the city can give consequences or make consequences if they rent to someone less than 55.
They can voluntarily limit it to people over 55 and not discriminate under the fair housing law.
So a 20-year-old could live there if they chose to let them live there, correct? And then I want us to look at the 55. There is no guarantee of 55. There is no guarantee of 55. There's none. No way to write it in there, no consequences at all. And the comprehensive plan shows low density there. It's just in the wrong spot. I mean, there is a need for this, and I agree with everybody. I'm gonna be 67. I may need a spot like that someday, but it's in the wrong spot. The comprehensive plan doesn't call for it, so standard street, never gonna have a sidewalk. It's something to think about our old neighborhood. It doesn't need this. Thank you.
By all means.
My name is Sammy Castle.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. I was just kind of wanting to say, it seems like there's been a bunch of maybe negative things about the traffic coming in and out of there. I own a piece of property at the end of Christmas Ridge. I've sat there for hours before and never saw a car come through. And that's the God's honest truth, okay? Now, I live down towards the end, not up towards where the entrance is gonna be. My home is down, it's 399 Christmas Ridge, okay? But my own personal opinion is, I don't want this to be developed as a single-family housing, okay? Anybody can move in there then. Riffraff can move in there, drug dealers can move in there, anybody that wants to can buy those houses and move into them. To me, looks like a nice development. One of the nicer ones that's going to be in Berea. I would much rather have that on my street than single-family houses that anybody can move into. And there's been some controversy talking about renting to 55 or older or whatever. If these are single-family houses, then it's any age that you want to be that wants to buy these houses. It just don't make sense to me what some people are saying. I'm not here to make enemies. I'm just here to say I'd much rather have this here, a nice development that people are going to take care of. They've already proved that they do that. I'd much rather have something nice in there that we can be proud of, that's going to help our homes, the appraisal of our homes, the value of our homes. Help me out here, real estate girl. That's going to do nothing, I think, but help the value of our homes. I'm all for this. That's all I want to say. I'm all for this. We all agree that we need it in town. We got a spot for it. Vote yes. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tassel. Other comments? Audience? Yes, ma'am.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I got a question.
Would you name?
Sheila Richardson. I live at 144 Christmas Ridge Road, right directly across from the entrance for this subdivision. How many of the council has been out on Christmas Ridge Road to look at this proposed lot? Okay. There's one entrance, going to be one entrance in and out, right? It's right in the S curve. I've lived there 40-some years, and believe me, I have seen inches from head-on collisions coming around those S curves. You add that many more cars coming out on that road, there's going to be more near misses, and there's going to be some hits. And I'm all for a community for elderly. I'm not against it at all, but like everybody else has said, it's not the right place for it. We all moved out on Christmas Ridge because it was a dead-end street. It was a nice, quiet street. Tear that to smithereens. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's just, that's all.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Richardson. Other comments?
I was just gonna say, one thing that I've been taking under consideration, because, you know, we weigh the pros and cons, and, you know, that's what we do. And I've just asked myself, you know, would it be a big difference, 10 houses compared to, you know, that's gonna be traffic also, is all I'm saying, you know, it's gonna be traffic either way it goes. Either way it goes, there's gonna be more traffic. There's no way to say we can't allow any more traffic on, you know, Christmas Ridge Road, because it's gonna be either way, unfortunately, you know, to some people, but I don't see that it's gonna be a huge difference whether, you know, either way it goes to me. It's gonna be still a lot of traffic because they're still gonna build however many 10 houses or whatever, so.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I do. My name is Sally Stiltner. I live at 205 Christmas Ridge, and I strongly oppose this development. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Stolman. Anyone?
So, my understanding is that regardless of which way this goes, they're still gonna build there, right? I mean, they've already been approved to build 10 houses there, correct? Okay? It's gonna happen one way or the other, right? They're gonna either build houses there, single-family houses, or they're gonna build this nice place. Everything that I'm hearing is, we don't want construction there, we don't want the traffic in there. It's gonna happen one way or the other. One way or the other, there's gonna be more traffic, there's gonna be houses or duplexes or whatever is gonna be developed. I want this developed as that. Now, I know some people saying they don't want it developed at all, but it's gonna be developed. I mean, it's pretty certain it's gonna be developed, so which do you want? That's my question, which do you want? You ain't gonna fight them off. It's gonna happen. I'd rather have this than the single-family house. I just wanted to put that in perspective one more time, so everybody can figure out, everybody knows, they're gonna build here. So what would you rather have built here? In my opinion, that's gonna be a lot nicer than single-family houses, okay?
And there's supposed to be 2 entrances and exits to any subdivision like that. If they put in the 10, wouldn't there have to be 2 entrances?
Mm-mm. Don't think so. No.
I always thought that had to have 2 exits to get in and out.
Now, there's lots of dead-end streets, lots of cul-de-sacs through the
Yeah.
city. And, you know, in lots of circumstances, those are permitted.
Yes, Ms. Wilson. She had a question. And are we getting to the end?
Melissa Bigley again. You know, once again, I think this is a humanitarian endeavor, especially since Katie had mentioned that they're going to cater to a population that does not have a lot of financial resources. More than likely, because they're elderly, they don't have a lot of financial resources, they're not going to be running up and down the road. And yes, it's horrible, the motor vehicle accidents, the pedestrian accidents that have occurred. You know, that is something that has nothing to do with her project whatsoever. That has to do, as somebody mentioned previously, it has to do with drivers. You know, maybe somebody should solicit the law enforcement in that area to be out there in heavier presence so that they can monitor what goes on out there. And I know nobody likes change, but as we've heard and we all know that that there's going to be development there, whether it is for, you know, senior citizens, 55 plus, or whether it's going to be single housing. If there's 10 single houses that are constructed, yes, there's going to be a younger population. There is going to be more vehicles. It's going to be different. Where at least with this endeavor that Katie and her spouse is taking on, it will be more of a controlled setting. You know, a little paradise for the seniors, and how nice is that? You know, we all talk about that we're humanitarians, that we're good, we like to treat each other nicely, we like to be polite, but you know, when it comes down to it, are we always looking forward? Are we always got the back of the other person that maybe has not had the same opportunities or they've lost a loved one, they have no support system. Just because they're elderly and have adult children does not mean that they have adult children that even check on them or even visit them. You know, I think that's probably what makes Florida heavily populated with 55 plus and older people, is because they can go down there and live in their little luxury paradise and have their little poodle or their little puppy dog that they have to protect from alligators, because they know that their children, their adult children, are not going to come to see them. And a lot of these places do have restrictions where maybe your loved ones, your families can come visit and not overstay more than 2 weeks. I don't know if that's something that Katie wants to take in consideration, that, you know, that the people that do visit, you know, the family members, that there is a restriction on the time frame that is there, so that the 65-year-old lady doesn't have her two 45-year-old no-count sons moving in with her. And so I really think that it's a humanitarian endeavor. I just don't know how you can say it any other way other than, hey, I'm over 65, you're all gonna get over 65, and each and every one of us in here that can walk and talk and have decent health, yeah, we're blessed. And I think there's nothing wrong with spreading the blessings onto other people.
Okay. Thanks, Ms.
That's it.
Thanks, Ms. Bigley. Okay, one more comment.
And this is all about transparency. We've heard that there's been 10 lots approved or potentially for this property. Just so everybody knows, this is a 200-foot wide lot, all right? If we look at what setbacks would allow for single-family development with a 25-foot road frontage and 25-foot rear, I mean, you can see we are looking at really small houses. So I just want to be transparent. I think what this is about, in my opinion, is being able to develop this property in a way that creates better larger amount of rental return than can be done under current circumstances. The other reality about this lot is that the lot does not have any road frontage. It has a 50-foot easement to Christmas Ridge. So just in hopes of full transparency, I wanted to make sure everybody realized that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, they're building duplexes, right? Duplexes require a Zone 2 change, am I right? Why are they pushing for a Zone 3 change?
Amanda.
Because these duplexes are on one lot. So if you look at that conceptual drawing, we call it multifamily because it is more than one unit on the lot. Let me find my exhibit here. So as opposed to, and I think Mr. Spencer said this earlier, you could come in here and draw a bunch of lot lines. Those would be duplexes, right? But this bold black line would be the property line, is the property line. So all of these houses, or all these duplexes, structures, would be contained within one lot on one development. That is permitted by our regulations. It is permitted by building code. You are correct that generally speaking, duplexes would be permitted in a R2 zone. But in this case, we are putting more than one structure on this lot. So now it becomes a multi-family development.
So what's to keep it from a couple years down the road? Okay, it's Zone 3. I can put up a townhouse, or I can put up a big apartment. If this falls through and I can't get whatever, what's to keep them from changing it down the road?
So there is a KRS statute that I read just a little bit ago that allows, if the Planning Commission desires so, and I'm not a voting member, I'm staff, just so you know, there is a KRS statute that does allow the commission at their discretion to approve this plan and hold them to this plan that was presented. And when we look at plans, and by definition, it speaks to the density of it. So in other words, they couldn't go in there and build lots more units than they've proposed in this agreed-to plan. Now, again, that's at the commission's discretion. Again, it depends on how, it depends on what the motion and the vote is. And so tonight's, just to be clear, tonight's meeting and what this board's role is to make a recommendation to city council. And city council would have to have 2 readings of an ordinance for this to become law and for the zone to actually be changed.
I think Mr. Bill, when he talked about the precedence of what may go on that lot there, is something we all have to consider, how close those are, the density of that, the ability for a fire to jump from building to building, the type of construction that needs to be built there, and again, the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I will ask if any other members of the commissioner have comments. Yes.
I just want to say out there in the audience, y'all have a strong voice, and there's a lot of people out there in the audience, and you could really, I don't know why you don't go before the city and have something done with that curve. We talked about that about 20 years ago or something, and it seemed like somebody didn't want to give up enough land in that curve for a sidewalk. I mean, you've got to give a little bit. I mean, look at all the voices out here that could go to the city and say, look, we need our curve fixed. Not adding anything to the far here, but if you had 16 more houses there, you'd have 16 more voices, at least, that could do something with that road and get that fixed. I mean, it's always been a problem down there, and it's always been an issue in that curve. I mean, it's something that really should be addressed to the city itself, the city administration. As far as that part, I'm not trying to say anything, but that's something that you really should think about doing. Not whether 16 more people moves there or not, but there's enough voices here that should be able to get something done with that street, because these other streets have been fixed. A lot of that stuff's been took care of. You know, I mean, whether you want it done or not, now that's a different story. You know, it depends what you want the neighborhood to be. But like you said, there's 35, 40 acres more than that back behind there that is going to be developed someday, whether we like it or anybody else likes it or not. You know, that's just part of it. But that's something to think about. That's all.
Okay. There is consideration before us for 145 Christmas Ridge Road. They've requested a zone change from R1 single family to R3 multifamily residential. The question has been raised regarding why it cannot go to R2, and I think Amanda addressed that as to why it cannot be an R2, it has to be R3. Mr. Gilbert has indicated that while indeed we cannot, how should I say, the expectation is that this will be a 55 and over development. Now, whether or not they come in and rent it to 20-year-olds, they have to live in this community, okay? So I think that one of the things is that we're recognizing, and almost everyone in here has indicated, a need for a senior living spaces. It's kind of like everyone wants it, but not in my community. Well, there's not a lot of space to put that in other places in the community. We've been asking for this for a long time, okay? We now have Glenn and Nida Wiles who is asking for us to approve them to be able to move forward with this. we've had a lot of discussion tonight, a lot of pros, a lot of cons, a lot of concerns. The road, yes, 21 going around that curve is a bear. It always has been, and hopefully it will not always be, because hopefully we'll be able to get that straightened out one day with enough property being given to allow that to happen. But at this point, we can't do anything about 21. At this point, we are being asked to approve, or we approve and recommend to the city council a zone change. I think I've had a lot of people who have made comments. At this point, I would like to entertain a motion from a commissioner as to what we want to do with this zone change request. And I would like for you to put as much in that motion as possible, so that indeed we could, if it is for approval, so indeed we could make sure that we're looking at it from this conceptual plan rather than just any plan. I will entertain. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the city council approval for the zone change for 145 Christmas Ridge Road from R1 Single Family Residential to R3 Multifamily Residential, with the finding that the proposed zone is in compliance with the text in 2020 Comprehensive Plan, which states the need for housing to support the aging community and diverse housing options. I would also like to include in that motion, though, that the motion is also to include the development of this lot must comply with the density and general layout of the conceptual plan that was presented here tonight. So that's, as long as they go along with the plan that was presented here tonight, that's the plan.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it. Let's vote it up or down.
Thank you. I was getting ready to call it off the table. Okay. It has been moved in second that we record that the Planning Commission recommend to City Council approval of the zone change for 145 Christmas Ridge from R1 Single Family Residential to R3 Multifamily Residential, with the findings that the proposed change is in compliance with the text of the 2020 Comprehensive Plan, which states the need for housing to support the aging community and diversified housing options. The motion also states that will include development of this lot must comply with the density and general layout of the conceptual plan presented. It's been motioned and second, and now I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One. The motion carries with one in opposition.
Madam Chair, may I qualify my vote?
Qualify your vote.
Explain.
Okay, the motion has been moved, so, the motion has been approved, so go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I voted no because all this is predicated on the idea that this development will be targeted to 55 and older. And there's no way that this body can guarantee that that's what will happen. We're basing that finding on the good word, and I'm not doubting the character of the person here, but their word that that is what's going to happen, and and we have no guarantees that that is what is going to happen. Nor can we put in place anything that's going to happen. So we can change, we can change this to R3, but there's no, and they can build all these duplexes, but they don't have to rent them to 55 and older.
Part of the motion states that the housing is to support the Asian community and diversified housing options. That's the motion states. And if that doesn't happen, in trouble. All right. We still have one more item. New business. Yes, we do have one more item. 345 Pauline Drive, Calico Apartments Development Plan.
I will recap very quickly.
Thank you.
So from a earlier work session, the engineer Steve Baker from Midwest Engineering presented a development plan for 192 apartment units at 345 Pauline Drive. It has been approved through the development review team. And this evening, they are seeking approval with a contingency on the engineer's stormwater plan approval.
Okay. All right. We listened to that in our work session. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the development plan for 345 Pauline Drive, Calico Apartments, contingent upon the city engineer stormwater plan approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve 345 Pauline Drive, Calico Apartments Development Plan, contingent upon the city engineer stormwater approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's move forward with that. Anything else that we need to discuss, Amanda?
No, ma'am.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Moved and second, we're out of here. Thank you so very much. I appreciate everyone